Guy right here, this is one of those invasive apple snails. So when I see some eggs, I'll point it out. You'll see a lot of, the pink ones are the invasive ones, the white ones are the native ones. But you'll see a little caterpillar looking egg sac thing that'll just be dangling right above the water. It'll be running along a reed. Did you find one already? Yep, look, good eye, bub. Proud of you there. That's on a swamp apple, a custard apple tree.
There's a vodka.
These invasive apple snails, they thought that this was going to be a bad thing, particularly for the snail kites, which is an awesome bird that's like a hawk that eats these things. Well, the snail kites were already having a very, very hard time. But when the invasive snails came, it actually made the snail kites of Florida have a comeback. Within just a couple of years, I keep putting this back in the water so I don't hurt them, give them plenty of water. But within a couple of years, that snail kite, the hawk, actually developed a longer bill, like evolved to have a longer bill in just a matter of years. So he could take advantage of this and eat it, and then use that as an awesome food source. But you guys see that nail-looking thing right here? Really hard. That's what we call the operculum on a gastropod. That's what this guy is. Snails, they're gastropods. They're the ones that make the shell. Well, this operculum is actually the same thing that's made from our fingernails, our thumbnail. You could call my thumbnail an operculum. Just a funny little scientific word that sounds cute when they say it. But this, what it's meant to do is, one, it acts like a protection. So when he's scared and closed off, it's not a lot of critters can get that out of there because he's got that protective little covering, that operculum. But it'll also use that to move. So it'll put that operculum and it'll kind of push off and move a little bit and scoot. Move that operculum and push off a little bit and scoot. So when that guy starts out as a baby, he's actually just as small as what you're seeing right there. So a gastropod, it'll always grow out. So what this does is starts out like a little spiral and it keeps growing and growing. You see these little lines here. Next year it'll keep going and going and going and going. Those little lines aren't like the lines on a tree and represent each year though. Gastropods, it's kind of hard to know their age. You have to know when they mature as far as start to develop a little lip out here, and then how long that species lives for. I'm not exactly too sure on an apple snail, so I wouldn't even be able to give this guy an age. If it was something in the ocean like a conch, that I know lives to be 35 but doesn't mature that lip till about 25, then I'd be able to give a better age, but not really. Gastropods are pretty hard, but they're pretty magical little critters. A lot of times when we think of the hermit crabs or any kind of crabs in the shells, it's these guys who make the shells, the snails. And it's a very, very cool thing. It's kind of magic. We don't know why they make the exact shapes and the different patterns that they do, but we know it's obviously for a reason. But it's pretty awesome stuff. Their shells are made out of calcium carbonate, which is the same thing as limestone, which is the same thing that corals are made out of. So it's a very cool little biological process to be able to make yourself protected. So as he ages, that'll just keep going around and around so he gets bigger and bigger. Now if the crab, like a hermit crab, uses that shell, it's not like he can grow the shell bigger, right? He's just got to ditch it and go find a bigger shell. But he'll never ditch his shell until he finds a bigger one. Because when he crawls out of there, he exposes that back half of his body that's super soft, not like his claws. It's more like a shrimp. That's your invasive apple snail, guys. An example of just how sometimes invasive doesn't mean, quite that bad. We forget that we're the most invasive species on the planet. But, do we look at our dogs and our cats as invasive? No. But, house cats have actually caused more extinctions on planet Earth than any other animal other than human beings. We bred these little miniature lions to be the perfect killers, right? But we also don't think of our dogs like that because Kevin's just so cute, but in reality, if we think about, we all have a dog and that sucker's pooping 3 times a day, and, where are we putting that? Are we picking it up like we're supposed to? If then we're probably using a lot of plastic. If we're not, we're creating nutrient pollution. But it kind of goes to show you, Our dogs actually are more invasive than some of these invasive species. You know, pythons, for example, that's way different. They're rocking the whole ecosystem here because they're competing for everybody's food. We don't see as many birds as we used to see in the Everglades typically. The water's this high, you're not going to be seeing them as much anyway because there's not a whole lot of places to stand around and wait. You know, when that water's this deep, the bird can still land. And when it's 4 feet deep, there's not a whole lot of places he wants to chill out at. But we got to start taking into consideration, you know, what that invasive means. You know, we don't consider ourselves invasive, but we are.
The government is paying for the fighting pumpkins or something like that. I hear something like that.
They do. They pay you to hunt the pythons here in Florida, so you can get a permit through FWC, and people will come out here and hunt them. But as a biologist, I'll tell you, I don't think there's any real hope on that. You know, so much of the Everglades is just inaccessible. And in reality, you know, python hunters, you know, they're able to, you know, drive the levees and stuff like that at night. And if there's a python crossing, boom, there you go. But it's very hard to just like, look out there, just imagine going and finding a python. Now, there might be one standing right here and I'd never know it unless you crawled over the top of my